So this particular article I thought was excellent because it seemed like it kind of vindicated me and other people that have talked about the Supreme Court and the vision that they have set for citizens versus corporations. Now, I'll start with you, Lorie. What did you think about that particular piece?
Well, I think it, like you said, it carries through the thread that we've been seeing, the pattern that we've been seeing for a long time, where part of the Supreme Court is pro-corporation and basically ignoring the fact that a lot of people suffer as a result of some of the decisions they made. For instance, the Comcast situation where they're trying to eliminate the ability for people to have class action suits. And everyone realizes that an individual can make, noise to a corporation and it means nothing to them. But it's not until you pool your resources or pool your voices together and have a group making a comment or, actually making the corporation pay out of their pocket because they have a class action suit that it actually makes a difference. So if you eliminate the ability for people to have a class action suit by saying there isn't a common thread or there isn't enough commonality between the injustice that they suffered, then it's also good. It's going to weaken the public and it's going to strengthen the corporations, and that's one of the major things that the Supreme Court is doing now.
One of the things that I thought was interesting about the Comcast piece, again, it dealt with more of an issue of a technical issue than it dealt with the issue of harm. And I didn't understand that, Bert. It didn't seem to make sense to me. I mean, why that we see it as a harm? Shouldn't that harm be dealt with? Shouldn't there be some type of adjudication, like you say?
Adjudication, yes. They're not, interestingly enough, they're not really denying adjudication. It's the manner in which the adjudication is processed. So if, for example, 1,000 people bought Lorie's, those boots do look nice, right?
Yeah, beautiful boots.
But she finds that they fall apart after 2 weeks. She ordered bought it once or twice. And, but she may not want to go through the problem of hiring a lawyer.
Right.
And the expense of doing it's not where she'll complain. They'll say, well, that's your problem. But in a class action where 1,000 or 5,000 lawyers come together, or 10,000, or maybe 1 million lawyers come together, the class action becomes a group action where they all participate and join together in an adjudication which recompenses and compensates them for their losses.
Right.
Okay. Now the businesses are happy with the court's decision that it's more difficult to engage class actions, but the adjudication is still there. They say, Lorie, you can go to arbitration, and you're just one-on-one. Or Lorie may have signed an agreement not to even go to the arbitration, so you just sue them on your own. So they limit the ability for the consumer to engage class action, where the class means you having 100, 1,000, 2,000, a million people. In the ComSat case, you had over 2 million people who were ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. And one of the things it mentioned is a case that we talked about before, Lorie, dealing with Walmart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Walmart, where they said that there wasn't enough commonality or there wasn't enough proof for the women to prove that they were being discriminated against based on the policies that the corporations were handing down in employment. And that's unfortunate too, because that's again taking away the ability to people to even have their case heard, so that someone can, jury or their peers can actually look at the situation and objectively, carry it through. But the sad thing about it is that besides the compensation for the boots falling apart or whatever, the other benefit of class actions is once the corporations, the money's coming out of their pocket, they're going to do quality control a little bit better the next time because they don't want to keep going through that. So you have a benefit for the general population that is not going to be, it's not going to be an issue for the corporations if we wind up not allowing them to have the class action suits.
Now, the article was a long article, so it had a lot of different information in it. But one of the things that I liked about was that they had people actually take time to research how this particular court is leaning when it deals with business practices in terms of the decisions, and how they make their decisions in terms of what cases they take. And it was very interesting that they said like 32% of the cases that they were taking were business cases. I said 32% of them? Interesting.
Yeah, well, those cases, they're amicus briefs, where a friend of the court. Now, you can be a case that's going on, and you like the case that she's sued, and you file. You're not the person involved directly,
right.
but as a person who's interested in this or business or skilled in this, you file an amicus brief, which we call friend of the court brief, which supports her position since she's a business person and you support business, and that's why you support. So 32%, that is very high, because normally the court will take an appeal maybe one in 100.
Yeah.
1 in 100, and with the business now, it's 32% of accepting those briefs and as part of and in support of their case.
Yeah, and they talked about the fact that Justice Roberts, I think they mentioned Justice Roberts and Justice Alito, that they're constantly leaning in one direction,
right.
All the time, on the side of the corporation. So it's a common thread that anytime a decision of this or a situation of this sort comes up, that they're going to be leaning in that direction of favoring the corporation. And it's unfortunate because Maurice and I were talking just last night about some of the new bills that are being put forth in terms of putting tax on people who are on the internet, and things of that nature. And again, it has to be for the benefit of corporations, because if you have a Best Buy or you have the old Circuit City or some of these major corporations, those are corporations that have the advantage because of their their advertising and being out in the forefront. But some of these smaller individuals who are selling out of their home or acting as middlemen or doing things, their benefit of not having the taxes has been because, okay, I'm not operating in that state, so I don't have to, charge the tax. But also, I don't have overhead, so I can charge a cheaper price. They're now trying to drive up the prices of these items so that everybody's charging the same thing and that these corporations have a monopoly. And it's not fair, because the population who wants to buy the products, if they can only afford it at a cheaper price, they should have that option.
Right.
And the person who's selling it, the small business or the small individual who's trying to make a buck out of that, they're going to suffer as well.
Right, right. She mentioned the two conservative justices,
right.
2 liberal justices, Breyer and the lady.
What is it?
Ginsburg. Yeah, they strongly opposed the positions of the justices, conservative justices, saying that they're just trying to sneak in a way of supporting supporting that particular business.
Right.
And the ComStat thing was really egregious in the sense that they stood to lose in class action cases. Corporations hate this because when everybody gets together, if they win the case, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's not that $25 that Lorie is trying to get for a boots by itself.
Right.
It's all the boots together, and it's millions of dollars. So they are very concerned. So ComStat was $800 million, and ripping off people by buying out the duopoly and when two service
right.
Video services are in the area, like in Philadelphia that was.
Right.
It's only winds up with one, just ComStat.
Right.
So they become a monopoly. And the people suffer eternally because if they can never do class action, like one by one, it's serious.